I still can't explain what happened that night. If I'm honest, I don't even know if I want to. But I owe it to myself, and to her, to tell the story exactly as it unfolded. It started as a simple trip, a weekend getaway for me and Emily. We had just started dating, and she was eager to show me the freedom of traveling in her old camper van, a home on wheels she'd inherited from her grandmother. It was supposed to be fun, a break from the city and our hectic lives. But somewhere along the way, the road we were on stopped making sense. We left late afternoon, the sky a soft pink as we drove out of town. Emily was behind the wheel, humming softly to some indie playlist, while I mapped out our route on my phone. Our destination was a small lakeside campground she'd found online, quiet, secluded, perfect for us to disconnect. The GPS was clear, the directions simple. But as the sun dipped below the horizon, the road started to twist in ways neither of us expected. At first, it was subtle. The trees lining the road grew denser, their shadows stretching unnaturally long. The streetlights, which should have flickered on, remained dark. Emily joked about the ghost town vibes, but I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the dropping temperature. Then the road signs became confusing. We passed a sign that read "Welcome to Cedar Hollow," but we hadn't planned to go there. I checked the GPS again, no mention of Cedar Hollow anywhere. Emily slowed down, her eyes scanning the road ahead. "Maybe it's a detour," she suggested, but her voice lacked conviction. We kept driving, hoping to find a familiar landmark or a gas station, anything. But the road seemed endless, winding through thick woods that muffled all sound except the crunch of tires on gravel. The camper's headlights barely pierced the darkness. I noticed the air growing colder, and an uneasy silence settled between us. Suddenly, the van jolted. Emily slammed on the brakes. I looked up to see a fallen tree blocking the road. No way around it. We were trapped. "Let me check the map again," I said, fumbling with my phone, but the screen was blank, no signal. Emily tried her phone too, same result. We were cut off. We decided to turn back, but as we retraced our path, the road behind us looked different, like it had changed while we weren't looking. The trees seemed closer, the shadows deeper. The feeling of being watched crept over me. That's when I noticed it, the van's radio, which had been silent all day, suddenly crackled to life. A faint voice whispered something I couldn't quite catch. Emily reached to turn it off, but the voice grew louder, more urgent. Then the radio went dead. We were alone. Or so we thought. If you thought the radio crackling was the worst part, you're not ready for what came next. That moment, when the voice faded and the silence slammed back in, was the point where everything shifted. Emily and I sat frozen in the van, the fallen tree blocking our path like a silent sentinel. The darkness outside pressed against the windows, thick and suffocating. We tried to calm ourselves. Emily suggested we wait until morning to figure out the next step, but I could feel the unease growing inside me, like something was watching, waiting. The camper felt less like a safe haven and more like a cage. Hours passed, or maybe it was minutes, time seemed to lose meaning. The only sound was the occasional creak of the van settling. Then, just as I was about to suggest we try to sleep, the van's engine sputtered and died. The lights flickered and went out, plunging us into complete darkness. I fumbled for my phone's flashlight, but the screen remained black. No signal, no battery life left. Emily's breathing was shallow, and I could feel her hand trembling in mine. We were utterly isolated. Then I heard it, a faint tapping on the side of the van. At first, I thought it was a branch brushing against the metal, but the rhythm was deliberate. Tap. 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 Like someone or something was trying to get our attention. "Emily," I whispered, "did you hear that?" She nodded, eyes wide, gripping the door handle. We sat frozen, listening. The tapping stopped. Minutes later, a soft glow appeared outside, just beyond the edge of the headlights. It wasn't a flashlight or a lantern, more like a pale, flickering light, like a candle flame swaying in the wind. I wanted to tell Emily to stay put, but curiosity gnawed at me. I opened the door just enough to peek out. The woods were empty, the trees standing silent and still. The light was gone. "Maybe it was a deer or something," Emily said, trying to sound reassuring, but her voice cracked. I wanted to believe her, but deep down I knew we weren't alone. We decided to wait until dawn, hoping the first light would guide us back. But as the night dragged on, strange things kept happening. The van's interior temperature dropped sharply, our breath visible in the air. Whispers seemed to echo just beyond the windows, too soft to understand but impossible to ignore. At one point, I swear I saw a shadow move between the trees, too tall and too slow to be an animal. Emily saw it too. We locked eyes, fear rooting us in place. When morning finally came, the sun's weak light revealed a path we hadn't noticed before, a narrow dirt trail leading deeper into the forest, away from the blocked road. The GPS still showed no signal, but something about that trail felt like a chance, a way out. Against my better judgment, we packed up and started walking down that path, hoping it would lead us back to civilization. But as we moved deeper, the forest seemed to close in, the trees bending toward us like silent watchers. And then, we heard it, a faint melody, like a music box playing somewhere far ahead. That melody, soft, haunting, and impossibly distant, was the only thing guiding us now. Emily and I followed it cautiously, our footsteps muffled by the thick carpet of fallen leaves. The forest around us seemed to hold its breath, every rustle and snap magnified in the heavy silence. As we walked, the trees grew older, their twisted branches reaching out like gnarled fingers. The sunlight barely filtered through the dense canopy, casting eerie patterns on the ground. The melody grew louder, but it never changed, looping endlessly like a broken record. We came upon a small clearing, and there, in the center, stood an old, weathered music box resting on a tree stump. It was open, its delicate ballerina spinning slowly to the tune we'd been following. The sight was almost beautiful, if it weren't so out of place. I reached out to close it, hoping to silence the music, but Emily grabbed my arm. "Wait," she whispered. "Look." Around the clearing, faint footprints circled the stump, too small to be ours, and too fresh to be old. The air grew colder, and the hairs on the back of my neck stood up. Suddenly, the music stopped. The silence that followed was heavier than before, pressing down on us like a physical weight. And then, from the shadows beyond the clearing, a figure emerged. It wasn't a monster or a ghost, at least not in any way we'd expect. It was a woman, pale, with eyes that seemed to reflect the dim light like mirrors. She said nothing, just watched us with an unsettling calm. Emily and I froze, unsure whether to run or stay. The woman stepped forward, and the forest seemed to lean in, waiting. Then she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper, "You shouldn't have come here." Before we could respond, the music box began to play again, louder this time, and the woman vanished as if swallowed by the shadows. We didn't wait to see what would happen next. Hand in hand, we ran back the way we came, the melody chasing us through the trees. When we finally burst out of the forest, the sun was setting, casting long shadows over the familiar road. The fallen tree was gone, the road clear. Our phones buzzed to life with dozens of missed calls and messages. It was as if no time had passed. We never spoke about that night in detail, but the memory lingers, like the echo of that endless melody. Sometimes, when the night is quiet, I swear I can still hear it, faint and haunting, reminding me that some roads are better left untraveled.